Hey, what's up, everyone? Back with another Penguin reaction. Just watched the fifth episode, I think it is, of the season, and this is the first episode where I was like, "Ooh, this episode has some problems." Particularly with pacing. I don't think it was a bad episode per se. I thought it was entertaining. It was very fast paced, but I actually felt it was in a lot of ways like too fast paced. Like they move at like a lightning pace this episode. I thought, we would take a little more time with this, but I think that each of the episodes has actually been like relatively slow moving and very character focused. And it's not necessarily bad to pick up the pacing, especially since we're getting closer to the end here. But I'm like, man, they move a lot of distance in this episode, with what happens. And I felt the pacing to be a little bit off at points where I was like, ooh, maybe we should have slowed that down a little bit and played that out a little longer. I'll talk about that as we get to it, but so we pick up where we left off. Oz escapes. We're seeing what's been happening with him during this one day. Last episode, Sophia killed her whole family, and Oz kidnaps Maroni's son, which I was like, this is what I'm talking about. I was like, it would have been nice if we'd introduced this guy a little bit. Or I don't know, maybe developed out the Maroni mother a little bit, since they both die in this episode. But I thought it took me out of it a little bit that they used TikTok. I get that this is a modern show. It just seemed weird when that TikTok logo popped up on there. But regardless, they kidnapped the son to use as a bargaining chip. They then immediately cut to the prison, and I was like, well, how did he arrange a meeting with Maroni? But I guess they knew he had his son. It doesn't. It's not bad that they're moving fast like this, but I was like, oh man! Immediately after the title, he's in the prison talking with Maroni. Um, I'm used to them being a little bit more slower paced with like, okay, we come up with a plan, we set it up, we do it, blah blah blah. But this time they're just kind of going for it. But they trade the mushrooms for the sun, and he soaked the sun in gasoline. So when they eventually got into a fight, which they knew would happen, he lights him on fire and burns the sun and the mother Nadia. Um, which I was like, very brutal scene. We see Oz like being fascinated with the fire, and we're seeing like a darker side to himself. I felt like we actually have not done a good job of like hinting at how dark Oz is on the inside. This is something I talked about before, where I said that like in a lot of ways Oz has been presented much better than someone like Tony Soprano. We've not seen a lot of this darkness yet. Yes, did he stab that one guy? Sure, but we've never seen this kind of like unjustified cruelty in him. I mean, he just being fascinated by watching those two people burn to death. We see later he gets into a fight with his girlfriend, and it's very much like after everything I've done for you, and he smashes shit, and it's like, this feels like it's coming out of nowhere a little bit. I'm not saying I wouldn't believe Oz would do something like this, but I'm just saying I would have liked it if we had put some more pieces like that in earlier episodes. And maybe they're there and I haven't seen them because I've only been watching it once, once a week when it comes out. But he's actually been presented, I think, in too nice of a light so far. And if we're gonna go down this route of making him like a more like a Tony Soprano, very flawed, like shitty person on the inside too, we should have been setting up those dominoes a little bit before this. I mean, if you think about the Sopranos pilot, you see Tony's darkness from the very beginning. Um, but it's still a good episode. I thought there was also this moment I didn't like, which is the killing of Johnny Vitti. And it's not that I'm attached to this character. I'm not. I don't really care whether he's there or not. I just felt that like, wow, we actually had a scene of development with him and how he felt about what Carmine Falcone did to his cousin, Sophia's mother, and for her to just kill him like this, I get it. It's a girl boss moment, and I'm not opposed to the girl boss aspect of this show. Like, it's fine. It's like I it's a like people are gonna be like, a woman running a mafia family, it doesn't make sense. It's a fucking Batman TV show. It doesn't make sense that there's, you know, a caped crusader out there fighting. It's like there's plenty of like women super villains in these type of shows. Like I said, Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, Catwoman. There's tons of stuff like this. It doesn't stretch my credulity to be like, oh, a woman is running this family now. I'm just, my only problem with that scene, I was like, if we had a whole scene of developing Johnny Vitti, and it's like, oh, it seems like he kind of regrets what happened, and it seems like Sophia is like gonna accept him and take him in. That's kind of wasted time if she's just gonna blow his brains out like that. Like, we could have skipped that scene of her torturing him in the basement and him having that moment of development, and I don't know, slowed the pacing down for something else. I don't know. It's like, I'm just saying that scene kind of feels like a waste if we're just gonna, you know, blow this guy's brain out. And I noticed that about a lot of shows. They tend to be quick for the shock value of just like boom. I even watched a little bit of the behind the scenes stuff, and even the actor was like, he probably should have kept me around a little bit longer. Now I know there's an argument that like, well, she trusted Oz and that didn't work out for her, so why would she trust, you know, Johnny Vitti? And sure, but I don't know. I also I feel like this whole class struggle angle with the mafia, it feels just kind of weird to me. Like, I don't like I guess that there's like, you know, the underprivileged labor class in any organization, but just doing that in a mafia just feels kind of weird to me. Like I mean, it is true. We saw that in The Sopranos, but this whole like, we're gonna run the family like a you know, a co-op, you know, like a employee owned co-op. It just feels kind of weird. It doesn't feel mafia-esque to me. This whole the Falcone family never felt like a real mafia organization. It feels like superhero, like goons, like, you know, like when the Joker has like his goons or whatever. It's not like a legitimate crime organ, like a mafia organization. It's like a, yeah, we're gonna dress like, you know, clowns and work for the Joker, like in the Arkham games. It feels more like that than it feels like a legitimate mafia family. But you know, that's fine. It is what it is, and it's a comic book show. But yeah, just this episode, I mean, it just flies by. It just moves so quickly through. Not to say that it wasn't entertaining per se, but I just like, ooh, you know, I could have slowed it down. We could have had some more character stuff. I felt like we skipped over a lot of that. We got a little bit of it with like the mom and Oz, but yeah, it's just like, I think they needed to move all the characters in place to have like a really action packed final few episodes. I think we only have like 2 or 3 more episodes to go. So I think they needed to use this episode to get all the get all the pieces in place. And it, you know, it makes sense because at the end of this, the Maronis have joined forces with Sophia, who she's calling herself Gigante. She renamed the family the Gigante family now. I was wondering why they named her that, because I was like, immediately when you hear Gigante, you think of Vincent the Chin Gigante. And I thought, I was like, oh, maybe they're doing something with like, Vincent the Chin famously pretended to be crazy, and that's how he evaded law enforcement for a long time. They didn't know he was the boss. And I thought, I was like, oh, maybe they're doing some kind of play on that with Sophia, like she's using her insanity or whatever as like a mask or whatever. But I watched the behind the scenes thing afterwards, and they said that like it's from the comic books, so I was like, okay. But it is an interesting little connection there. But anyway, they're united now, and they're going to be going after Oz. We'll have to see how things develop. You know, this ending was very weird, where I was like, I didn't know what. So they set up a new base in these underground tunnels, and I was like, that's a weird place to set the episode ending, because the episodes usually end on like a climactic note of like, oh, the status quo has changed in this way. honestly, the Maronis and the Gigantes teaming up is more of like one of those like, oh shit moments. You think you'd end on that, right? But to end here where they just find this layer, I was like, it's cool, but it didn't feel like that like fundamental of a shift in the dynamic for me. I was wondering if these tunnels were some kind of like reference or something. Like, is this supposed to be like Penguin's lair from the comic books that I'm just not getting? I guess it sort of reminded me of the Danny DeVito Penguin role where he has like this layer in the sewer with like all these penguins like running around. Um, I didn't know if it was some kind of like reference, like maybe comic book nerds are watching that and going like, "Oh my god, he's in the layer" or something. But for me, I was just like, I would have rather ended on that note of the two mafia families teaming up because that feels like something shifted in the dynamic here. Overall, this is probably the weakest episode of the season so far. For me, not a bad episode. I still think it's pretty good. I'd give it like a 7 out of 10. But yeah, just some flaws in the pacing a little bit here, but maybe they had to do that to set up future episodes. So we'll have to wait for those next week to find out. But either way, thanks for listening to this, and stay tuned for more reactions coming soon.